Groovy English Podcast.
Hey there! Welcome back to Groovy English. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Aiden. We share real stories, useful tips, and everyday English to help you grow with confidence.
Wherever you are in your English learning journey, we're glad you're here.
If you're enjoying the podcast, feel free to like, subscribe, or share it with a friend. Let's get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and today I want to talk about something that I believe is one of the most important parts of learning English, but that nobody really talks about enough. It's the idea of thinking in English. When we learn a new language, most of us start by translating everything from our native language into English. We hear a word, we think of the equivalent in our language, and then try to speak or write. But what if I told you that thinking in English, not translating, is the real game changer? And yet, it's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. I want to share with you what I learned about this process, like the struggles, the surprises, and the mindset shifts that made it possible for me. So, if you've ever felt stuck, confused, or slow when speaking English, this episode is just for you. For years, I thought the goal was to memorize grammar rules and vocabulary. I'd spend hours studying, trying to memorize lists of words and complicated sentence structures. But when it came to speaking, my brain would freeze. I would catch myself mentally translating each phrase, and it slowed me down. I felt nervous and unsure. It took me a while to realize the problem wasn't my vocabulary or grammar knowledge. The problem was my thought process. I wasn't thinking in English. I was translating from my native language to English, word by word. That's like trying to run a marathon wearing heavy boots. It's possible, but exhausting and slow. So, what does it really mean to think in English? It means your brain starts to use English directly, without needing to translate first. You see something, hear something, or want to express an idea, and your mind immediately forms the English words and sentences naturally. This is why native speakers don't pause to translate. Their minds just work in the language itself. The first time I tried to think in English deliberately, it felt strange. I caught myself thinking in my own language out loud, translating every word. But I started small. Every morning, I would look around and describe what I saw in English in my mind. For example, the sky is blue. The birds are singing. I am drinking coffee. This kind of simple practice helped me tune my brain to English. I also started trying to answer questions in English silently. Instead of thinking, how do I say this in English? I tried to think in English directly. But here's what nobody tells you. Thinking in English can be tiring at first. Your brain is rewiring itself, creating new habits, and that requires energy. You might feel mentally exhausted after even just a few minutes of focused English thinking. That's totally normal. Another thing nobody talks about is how your native language will always be a part of you. You won't magically forget your first language or stop thinking in it altogether. That's not the goal, and it's not realistic. Instead, thinking in English is about building a new skill, like learning to play the piano while still knowing how to play the guitar. Sometimes you'll switch back and forth, and that's okay. The goal is to get to a point where English is the default language when you want to express yourself, at least in certain situations, like when you're at work, chatting with friends, or practicing your skills. One surprising thing I learned is that thinking in English doesn't always mean full sentences. Sometimes, it's images, feelings, or simple words floating in your mind that aren't organized perfectly. That's the beauty of language learning. It's flexible. For example, if I'm hungry, I might just think the word hungry in English or a simple phrase like need food. Over time, these simple thoughts grow into full sentences naturally. Don't get stuck trying to think perfectly in English from the start. That will only frustrate you. Allow your mind to be messy and imperfect as it learns. So, how can you practice thinking in English more effectively? Here are a few tips that helped me. First, immerse yourself in English content, not just to listen, but to think about what you hear. Watch a movie or listen to a podcast and pause regularly to summarize what you understood in your mind. Ask yourself questions like, what just happened? How did the character feel? What would I say in this situation? Try to answer in English silently. Second, try to talk to yourself throughout the day in English. Describe what you're doing, what you're feeling, or what's around you. It might feel weird or even silly, but it's one of the fastest ways to build the habit of thinking in English. For example, when you're cooking, you could say in your mind, I'm cutting the vegetables. Now I'm heating the pan. I need to add salt. This habit turns your brain into a language machine, practicing English without needing a conversation partner all the time. Third, don't be afraid of making mistakes in your thoughts. You don't have to get it right immediately. The goal is communication, not perfection. When you think in English, you might mess up grammar or vocabulary at first, and that's totally normal. The more you do it, the more accurate and natural it becomes. Fourth, use simple phrases and vocabulary in your thoughts. Don't try to use complicated words just because you've learned them. Thinking in English is about expressing yourself clearly, not showing off. For example, instead of trying to think, I am famished and require nourishment, think, I'm hungry. I want to eat. Clear and simple beats complex every time. Another key insight I want to share is how thinking in English improves your speaking fluency. When your brain automatically thinks in English, your mouth just follows. You don't have to pause and translate. You speak more naturally, faster, and with more confidence. This was a huge breakthrough for me. My speech became smoother, and I felt less nervous. But there's a catch. Thinking in English needs consistent practice. It's like training a muscle. If you stop practicing, your brain will fall back into old habits. That's why daily practice, even if it's just a few minutes of active English thinking, can make a huge difference over time. One method I love is mind mapping in English. When you have a topic in mind, write or draw simple English words and phrases related to it. For example, if the topic is travel, you might map out words like plane, hotel, adventure, passport, and connect them in your mind. This technique helps your brain organize English thoughts more naturally. Lastly, remember that thinking in English is a journey, not a destination. It's a skill that develops gradually, and every step counts. Some days will be easier, some harder. Sometimes your mind will wander back to your native language. That's okay. Be patient and kind to yourself. One thing I noticed early on was how thinking in English helped me better understand English culture. When you think in your native language and translate, sometimes cultural meanings or feelings get lost. But when I forced myself to think in English, I started noticing little things, like idioms, expressions, jokes, that didn't translate well but made perfect sense in English. For example, phrases like break the ice or hit the nail on the head became more natural to me because I wasn't just memorizing words, I was understanding the ideas behind them. Thinking in English also changed the way I process emotions. When I started labeling my feelings in English, like I feel nervous, I'm excited, that made me happy, it helped me connect better with the language emotionally. This emotional connection made speaking and writing feel more personal and authentic, not just a school exercise. Another surprise was how thinking in English improved my listening skills. When your brain is tuned to English, you start to anticipate what native speakers might say next. You pick up patterns, tones, and rhythms faster. This anticipation helps reduce confusion and makes real-life conversations much easier. I also found that thinking in English helped me dream in English, which is a pretty cool sign that your brain is truly adapting. At first, my dreams were a mix of my native language and English, but over time, more English words and scenes filled my dreams. It felt like a secret badge of progress. You might wonder if you need to think perfectly in English all day long. The answer is no. It's about moments. For instance, when I'm making plans, I try to think about them in English. What time should I meet? What should I bring? These small pockets of English thinking add up. A big part of thinking in English is learning to accept imperfections. Sometimes, your thoughts might be incomplete or grammatically incorrect. Instead of stopping yourself, try to roll with it. This freedom makes your brain less stressed and more open to learning. Also, thinking in English helped me notice mistakes in my English. When you translate, mistakes can be hidden because your brain is focused on meaning, not form. But when you think in English, your brain starts catching little errors, like wrong verb tenses or awkward word order. This awareness is crucial for improvement. Another important aspect is how thinking in English made me more curious about words and expressions. I started asking myself, what does this word really mean? How is it used? This curiosity led me to explore idioms, phrasal verbs, and slang, things I might have ignored if I kept translating. Thinking in English also helped me become more creative with language. Instead of waiting for the correct phrase, I learned to make guesses and combine words in new ways. This experimentation is how we grow as language learners. Sometimes, thinking in English made me realize how different my native language is. Some ideas or feelings I wanted to express had no exact translation, so I had to find new ways to say them. This process expanded my thinking beyond language, teaching me flexibility. Another challenge I faced was thinking too fast in English and mixing words up. This happens because your brain tries to keep up with itself. When this happens, slowing down and focusing on clarity helps. It's better to be clear than fast. I also noticed that when I started thinking in English more, I became less afraid of making mistakes when speaking. My inner critic softened because I was practicing the language internally first. This gave me confidence to try out new words and sentences with others. The habit of thinking in English changed my reading experience too. Instead of translating sentences word by word, I started to read for meaning and context. This made reading more enjoyable and faster. One of the best parts of thinking in English is how it improved my writing. When I write, my thoughts flow more naturally. I can express myself without stopping to translate every phrase. This makes writing feel less like a chore and more like storytelling. Sometimes, I use thinking in English to prepare for conversations. Before meeting someone, I imagine possible questions and answers in English. This mental rehearsal calms my nerves and helps me stay focused during real conversations. Thinking in English also helps in problem solving. When I face a challenge, like planning a trip or making a decision, doing it in English sharpens my skills because I'm thinking in a different way. It opens my mind to new perspectives. I want to share a little secret. Sometimes, when you think in English, your brain feels overwhelmed and you might feel like giving up. That's normal. It means you're pushing your limits and growing. When it happens, take a break, but come back to it with patience. Practicing thinking in English also helped me build a language routine. Every day, I set aside time to mentally narrate my day, imagine conversations, or describe things around me. This routine became a safe space to practice without pressure. A question I often get is, how do I stop translating? The answer is, you don't have to stop completely. Instead, try to reduce it slowly by practicing thinking in English for short bursts. Over time, those bursts grow longer and stronger. Finally, thinking in English is a key to unlocking true fluency. It's what makes conversations smoother, understanding deeper, and expressing yourself authentic. And the best part? Anyone can do it with consistent practice, patience, and the right mindset. I hope my experience inspires you to try thinking in English more intentionally. It might feel difficult at first, but with time and practice, it becomes easier, and even fun. Try setting small goals, 5 minutes of thinking in English after you wake up, or narrating your daily routine in English in your mind. You'll be amazed how these small moments add up. That's all for today's episode about what nobody tells you about thinking in English. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Remember, your English journey is unique, and thinking in English is a powerful step forward. Until next time, keep practicing, keep thinking, and keep growing.
Your English is shining brighter by the minute. Hit that next video to keep leveling up your skills. Or dive into our other episodes for more secrets to talk like a pro. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to join the Groovy English crew.